Sometimes, the people who hurt us the most aren't cruel. They're just wounded souls trying to build something new from broken pieces, unaware that their unhealed past is still bleeding into the present, cutting everyone who gets too close. Welcome to Broken Truth, where love meets lies, and every story reveals the pain behind the smile. Many betrayals in love don't come from hate. They come from hidden wounds. When someone jumps into a new relationship without truly healing from the last, they carry unresolved pain, insecurities, and confusion into a space that requires clarity. And commitment, they might seem loving, but they're really searching for a bandage, not a bond. Their heart is still echoing with the voices of past betrayals or abandonment, and instead of facing those echoes, they silence them by clinging to someone new. But love built on escape is not love that can last, sooner or later. The weight of their unhealed past cracks the foundation, and in that collapse, the person who loved them genuinely ends up paying the price for a wound they didn't cause. She thought he was her beginning, not knowing he was still stuck in his own ending. There was a quiet desperation in the way he loved her, like he was trying to outrun something. Like maybe if he held her close enough, the past wouldn't catch up. She didn't see it at first. She only saw the way his eyes lingered on her when she left, or how his voice softened when he said her name, as if it hurt him to speak it. Too loud, like love was something fragile, something he didn't quite believe would last. She mistook the ache in him for depth. She called his silences mystery, his distance complexity. What she didn't know was that he wasn't building something new. He was surviving. And she just happened to be the warmest place he found while running. He told her she was different. He said it like a confession, like he'd been searching for someone to make him feel again. And maybe he was. Maybe she did make him feel again. But it wasn't love. It was distraction. And she loved him in a way that people who were whole love, with trust, with surrender, with softness, but he held her like someone who had lost too much, tight, fast, and never without fear. At first, it felt intoxicating. The urgency, the need in his touch, the way he wanted to know everything about her, as if she was the answer to questions he never asked aloud. She mistook it for passion, for meaning. She thought maybe this is what healing looks like. Two broken people finding each other in the dark. But he wasn't trying to heal. He was trying to forget, and she was the forgetting. The cracks started small. He would disappear into silence on days she needed him. He would flinch at simple questions. Where were you? Are you okay? As if love was interrogation, his affection had rules. She could be close, but not too close. She could ask, but not too much. She could love him, but only in ways that didn't remind him of what he lost before. She tried to hold him. Carefully, she tried to be the softness he needed, but no matter how gently she touched him, he bled, and then he blamed her for the blood. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it comes in the form of promises half-kept, or in the way someone looks at you while imagining someone else. Sometimes it's the slow fading of intimacy, the quiet retreat of someone who once said they'd stay, he didn't cheat in. The way people talk about in movies, no lipstick on collars or lies wrapped in perfume. He cheated her of safety, of certainty, of the kind of love that stands still and doesn't tremble. There were nights she sat in silence beside him, watching him stare into nothing. She thought, maybe if I love him a little more, he'll finally choose to stay with me instead of running from her. But healing can't be borrowed, and love can't be a replacement. He started to resent her for the comfort she offered, as if her love was a mirror showing him everything he wasn't ready to see. The more she gave, the more he retreated, and the more he retreated, the harder she tried. That's how she lost herself, not all at once, but piece by piece, in the pauses between his apologies, in the way he changed the subject whenever she asked where this was going, in the way he said, I need time, but never asked her how much time she had left in her. She remembers the day he left, not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't. There was no big argument, no screaming, just a silence that settled between them like dust. A long, quiet goodbye disguised as a pause. He said, "I just need to figure myself out." She nodded, and that was it. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. Not then. She had already been grieving him for weeks while he was still in her bed. What hurt most wasn't that he left. It was that she never really had him, not fully. Not in the way people should belong to each other. She had his body, but not his. Heart, his words, but not his truth. His presence, but not his peace. She went back through every moment, every conversation, trying to find the exact second where he stopped choosing her. But the truth was, he never chose her. He chose not to be alone. He chose not to feel his own pain. He chose her love as a place to hide, not a place to grow. And she chose to believe that her love could fix what he wasn't willing to face. She learned slowly, through sleepless nights and unanswered texts, through songs that hurt more than they used to, through moments where she almost reached out and then didn't. She learned that not all betrayal is violent. Some of it is quiet, a look, a shrug, a growing absence. Some of it is someone holding your hand while their heart is somewhere else. She stopped blaming him eventually, not because he deserved forgiveness, but because she deserved peace. She started seeing him not as a villain, but as a boy too wounded to stay, a boy who never looked at his own scars and expected her to pretend they weren't bleeding. That was never her job. She stopped waiting for an apology. Some people don't say sorry, not because they don't feel guilty, but because they don't know how to sit with what they've done. They bury it. They rewrite the story. They call it timing. They say you were too much. They say I wasn't ready. They say anything but I hurt you because I was hurting and I didn't stop myself. But she doesn't need his apology anymore, because one day she woke up and didn't think of him first. One day she sat with her own silence and didn't miss his. One day she laughed without guilt. One day she touched her own skin and didn't flinch at the memory of his hands. And that was the beginning, not of something new with someone else, but something honest with herself. The healing didn't come all at once. It arrived in fragments, in days she didn't cry, in texts she didn't send, in the way she learned to sit with her own loneliness without asking it to leave too soon. She understood that the betrayal wasn't rooted in her not being enough. It was rooted in him not being whole. And now, she refuses to be anyone's distraction. She wants to be chosen, not used, to be seen, not searched through, to be loved, not leaned on. He taught her that not everyone who comes close is ready to stay. She taught herself that she doesn't have to keep the door open for those who only knock when they're in pain. She is still soft, still hopeful, but now she knows the difference between someone who sees her as a person and someone who sees her as a place to hide, and that has made all the difference. She didn't know healing could feel this hollow at first, like learning how to breathe again in a room that used to smell like someone else's memory. His absence wasn't just silence, it was residue. His pain had lingered longer than his presence ever did, and when he left, he didn't just walk away with her trust. He left behind pieces of the ghosts he never faced, now stitched into her skin like a grief that didn't even belong to her. For days she carried it, the echo of his apologies, the weight of his fear, the aching question of, was I not enough, or was I just too late? But slowly, gently, something began to shift. Not all at once, not in some dramatic, movie-worthy way, just a quiet ache giving way to clarity. A whisper inside her that said, this wasn't about you. He didn't betray her because she lacked something. He betrayed her because he lacked healing, and all this time, she had been trying to love him out of his darkness, while he had been trying to use her light to hide from it. That kind of love was never going to last, not because she wasn't, Strong enough, but because he wasn't standing. So she started handing things back to the silence. The guilt, the over-explaining, the desperate need to understand what went wrong. The part of her that kept replaying moments, trying to solve a puzzle that was never hers. She stopped asking why he didn't choose her and started asking why she kept choosing people who couldn't stay. She began by reclaiming her own story. No longer the girl waiting for a closure he would never give. No longer the soft place for someone to collapse into without ever learning how to stand on their own. No longer the answer to someone else's unfinished questions. She didn't build walls. She didn't decide to become colder. Instead, she planted boundaries, quiet, clear, and rooted in self-respect. She realized that real love doesn't make you smaller to fit someone else's comfort. It doesn't demand silence in exchange for closeness. It doesn't come only when someone's lonely. Real love shows up whole, or it doesn't stay long. She stopped romanticizing brokenness. She stopped calling emotional unavailability depth. She stopped confusing intensity with intimacy, because love, when it's real, doesn't leave you second-guessing your worth. And now, she's learning to protect her softness, not by hiding it, but by choosing where to place it. She still believes in love, but now it's a different kind of belief, one rooted in awareness, not fantasy. One that knows you cannot pour yourself into someone just because they are empty. One that knows you deserve someone who doesn't just need you, but wants to meet you whole. She walks slower now. She listens to energy before words. She doesn't chase potential. She waits for peace. And she forgives herself for not knowing then what. She knows now, the version of her that stayed too long. She holds her gently. She doesn't shame her. She thanks her for trying, for loving, for hoping, even if it broke her, because that version of her too was love. And now she chooses differently, not out of fear, but from wisdom. She no longer builds homes in haunted hearts. She no longer offers light to those who won't open their eyes. She no longer stays where she isn't safe. Her softness is still there, but it is no longer unguarded. It is sacred now. And anyone who wants to come close will have to be not perfect, but present, honest, whole, or healing, ready to hold what she has protected so dearly. She is not hardened. She is just finally whole. Some betrayals teach us about others, but the hardest ones, they teach us about ourselves, where we abandon our own needs in the name of love. If you've ever lost yourself trying to hold on to someone else, you're not alone. For more stories that speak to the silent truths of love and heartbreak, subscribe to Broken Truth.